My daughter went missing during school lunch, and when I found her, I was even more heartbroken. The call came at 1:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. Mrs. Garcia from Lincoln Elementary sounded nervous when she told me Emma hadn't returned from lunch recess. They'd searched the playground, checked all her usual spots, asked her friends. No one had seen my 7-year-old daughter since she finished eating her sandwich. I'm Sarah, and I dropped everything at work to race to the school. Emma was shy, but not the type to wander off or hide. She followed rules religiously, and always stayed where teachers could see her. When I arrived, Principal Hayes was coordinating a full search of the building. They'd already called Emma's dad, my ex-husband Mike, who was driving over from his office downtown. The school resource officer was checking security cameras while teachers searched every classroom and bathroom. I felt that familiar panic rising in my chest, the same feeling I'd had when Emma was a toddler and briefly disappeared in Target. But this was different. Emma was older now, more aware. She wouldn't just vanish without a reason. Mrs. Garcia pulled me aside and said Emma had seemed different lately, quieter during class, less interested in activities she usually loved. Yesterday, she'd asked to call home sick, but when they took her temperature, it was completely normal. She'd also started eating lunch alone instead of with her usual group of friends. I asked why no one had called me about these changes. Mrs. Garcia looked uncomfortable and said they'd planned to reach out this week, but Emma always insisted everything was fine when adults asked. She'd just started keeping to herself more, which wasn't unusual for kids adjusting to second grade. Mike arrived 20 minutes later, his face pale with worry. We split up to search different areas while the staff continued their systematic check of the building. I decided to look in places adults might not think to check. Storage closets, behind the stage in the multi-purpose room, the space under the main staircase. That's when I remembered Emma's obsession with the school garden behind the cafeteria. She'd mentioned it several times lately, asking strange questions about whether plants could hide secrets or if flowers had feelings. I'd thought it was typical 7-year-old curiosity, but now those conversations seemed odd. The garden was separated from the main playground by a chain-link fence with a gate that was supposed to stay locked during school hours, but when I tried the handle, it opened easily. The lock was broken, hanging loose on its chain. I walked through rows of vegetables and herbs that the third graders maintained as part of their science curriculum. The space felt isolated, hidden from view of the main building by a storage shed and tall sunflowers. I called Emma's name softly, not wanting to scare her if she was hiding. Then I heard it, quiet crying coming from behind the tool shed. I found Emma curled up in a ball behind bags of potting soil, her face streaked with tears and dirt. She looked up when she saw me, and instead of relief, I saw pure fear in her eyes. Not fear of getting in trouble for leaving the playground, but real terror, like she'd seen something awful. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I can't go back to class. They'll know I heard them talking." I knelt down and pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body trembling against mine. I asked what she'd heard, who she was afraid of, but Emma just shook her head and said she promised not to tell anyone what the grown-ups were doing in the supply room. That's when I realized the school hadn't lost my daughter. She'd been hiding from something happening inside the building, something that scared her enough to break every rule she'd ever learned about staying safe. And that's when I understood why finding her made everything so much worse.